A-level biology population size. What are population growth curves and what factors determine population size? So a population is all the organisms of one species in a habitat, and populations of different species in a habitat make up a community. So as an example, all of the foxes in a wood form a population. But all of the species in a wood, like foxes, squirrels, crabapple trees and so on, form a community. Population size is a total number of organisms of one species in a habitat. This number changes over time because of the effect of various factors. And the maximum stable population size of a species that an ecosystem can support is called the carrying capacity. Carrying capacity varies as a result of both abiotic and biotic factors. So population is a group of interbreeding individuals of the same species in a habitat. Population size is the number of individuals in a population. Community is all the populations of different organisms that live and interact together. So now looking at population growth curves, there are three phases of a population growth curve. There are, first of all, slow growth, then there's rapid growth, and then there's population growth declines. So in slow growth, because at the beginning there's a very small number of individuals which will need to reproduce to slowly build the numbers, the curve is quite steady. It doesn't increase that quickly. So because there's a small number of individuals to start with, they have to acclimatise their conditions, they have to reproduce to slowly build up their numbers. Then you've got the rapid growth or exponential growth phase, and this is where the increasing number of individuals continue to reproduce. And what happens is the population size doubles per unit time, which is exponential growth. And you can see that because the gradient of the curves becomes increasingly steep. And then finally you get population growth declines until eventually the size will remain more or less stable with small fluctuations. And the decline may be due to limited food supply or increased predation. And the graph levels out with cyclic fluctuations due to variations in factors such as food supply, population of predators, etc. So as an example, if we looked at some algal cells, a single algal cell is capable of asexual reproduction, and when you place it in a newly created pond, initially there will be slow growth because these algal cells will need to reproduce to kind of build up their numbers. And then in summertime, if there's lots of light, the temperature of the water is about 12 degrees C, which is quite high for big bodies of water, lots of minerals, and so the conditions are pretty much optimum, and therefore you get this exponential growth, the rapid growth phase. And the algal cells divide rapidly because all the factors needed for growth of the population are present. There are no limiting factors. But then after a while, the mineral ions become used up because the population is very large. There's not enough mineral ions to support the whole population. And the populations become so large that algae at the surface prevent light penetrating deeper. Other species introduced into the pond carried by animals or wind, and some of these use algae as food, or they compete for the light and the minerals. And then in winter there will be lower temperatures and lower light of shorter duration, so therefore the population growth might start to decline. So the growth of the population slows and possibly stops altogether, and population size reduces. And then eventually the population is likely to reach a constant size with small fluctuations. So many factors like living or biotic factors and non-living abiotic factors affect population size, and it's changes in these factors which influence the rate of growth and the final size of the population. So biotic factors could be things like other species like bacteria and bees, etc. So you could have competition between the same species, predation, there could be a disease or pathogen spreading through the population. So they would all be biotic factors. And then you've got abiotic factors or non-living factors such as sunlight availability, rainfall, wind, pH, etc. So in summary, no population continues to grow forever because certain factors limit the growth, like availability of food, light, water, oxygen, shelter, accumulation of toxic waste, disease, predators, etc. Each population has a maximum size that can be sustained over long periods of time, and this is determined by limiting factors. And limiting factors that affect the size of the population can be abiotic, or non-living parts of the environment, or they can be biotic, which is activities of living parts of the environment like competition and predation.